Before democracy, before philosophy, before the towering columns and tales of gods and monsters, there was Greece. Not the Greece we know today, but a patchwork of islands and city-states, kings and conquerors, myths and real men who shaped the very foundation of Western civilization. From the mysterious Minoans to the brilliance of Alexander the Great, this is the entire history of ancient Greece, told in one epic journey. Let's dive in. Our story begins on the island of Crete around 3000 BCE with the Minoans, a seafaring people who built one of the first advanced civilizations in Europe. They didn't build massive empires or wage famous wars, but they gave us palaces, plumbing, and vibrant art that still survives today. Think of the Minoans like the iPhone prototype, sleek, ahead of their time, but destined to be overtaken by newer models. Centered around Knossos, their palaces were not just royal homes but administrative hubs with labyrinthine halls, possibly inspiring the myth of the Minotaur. But by around 1450 BCE, disaster struck, perhaps an earthquake, or more likely a volcanic eruption from Thera, modern-day Santorini, leading to decline and invasion by the Mycenaeans, mainland Greeks who built fortified cities like Mycenae, Pylos, and Tiryns, were tougher, more warlike. If the Minoans were artists, the Mycenaeans were warriors. These are the people who inspired Homer's Iliad, the legends of Agamemnon, Achilles, and the Siege of Troy. While the actual Trojan War remains debated, the Mycenaeans clearly had the military might. But around 1200 BCE, the Mycenaeans too vanished into history, part of a wider Mediterranean collapse known as the Bronze Age collapse. What followed was a dark age, literally. For centuries, much of Greek civilization disappeared. Writing was lost. Cities were abandoned. Trade dried up. Yet, the stories remained. Imagine a computer crashing, but someone keeps telling the software's stories aloud until the system can reboot centuries later. And when it did reboot, wow, did it come back stronger. By 800 BCE, Greece re-emerged, not as one kingdom, but as hundreds of polis or city-states. Each polis was fiercely independent. Sparta was a military boot camp. Athens, a playground for thought. Writing returned, this time using the Phoenician alphabet as a base. Art and architecture blossomed. Most importantly, ideas began to shape everything, from politics to the nature of the universe. And yes, this is when democracy first entered the chat. In Athens, around 508 BCE, under Cleisthenes, the foundations of democratic governance took shape. But just as the Greeks were finding their stride, Persia came knocking. The Persian Empire, massive, powerful, unstoppable, tried to bring tiny Greece to heel, but at Marathon in 490 BCE, the Athenians shocked the world by defeating a far larger Persian force. And when Xerxes returned a decade later with an even bigger army, a united Greece pushed back again. Leonidas and his Spartans made their last stand at Thermopylae, and at Salamis, a clever Athenian navy turned the tide. These wars weren't just military victories, they were proof that free people could defeat tyranny. Flush with victory, Athens entered a golden age, a cultural explosion like no other. Under Pericles, the Parthenon rose, democracy deepened, and the arts flourished. Philosophers like Socrates, playwrights like Sophocles, and historians like Herodotus changed the way we think, feel, and remember. It's no exaggeration to say that the foundations of Western thought were laid here, in the shadow of the Acropolis. But golden ages are fragile, and pride often breeds conflict. Athens' growing power alarmed Sparta, and in 431 BCE, the two clashed in the brutal Peloponnesian War, a Greek civil war that lasted nearly 30 years. It was devastating. Athens was weakened by plague, internal strife, and finally defeat. The Greek world was never the same. It's like two siblings fighting so long they forget why, only to find the house burned down around them. Into this fractured world would step a man from the north, and his son would change everything. Philip II of Macedon, a brilliant general and shrewd diplomat, united Greece, not through persuasion, but with a spear. But it was his son, Alexander, who took things global. Alexander the Great, tutored by Aristotle, crowned in his early 20s, launched a campaign that would topple the Persian Empire, reach India, and spread Greek culture across 3 continents. In just over a decade, he built one of the largest empires in history. But in 323 BCE, at just 32 years old, he died, and his empire fractured. Yet the legacy remained. From the columns of our capitals to the words in our politics, from theater to science to the very idea of individual liberty, Greece left its fingerprints on everything. And it all began with islanders painting murals, warriors storming Troy, and a curious people asking big questions. This was the entire history of ancient Greece, not just a timeline of events, but a legacy still shaping our world. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us which ancient civilization you want to see next.